Hey everybody, welcome back to another Dead by Daylight video. So today I wanted to talk about another very badly designed perk on the killer side. So when I did the last one where I said Knockout was the worst designed perk, I did get a few other mentions of some other perks, and we're going to go over a lot of them because it's easy content for me. But today's perk, if you've seen the thumbnail and title, is Play with Your Food. Now, in theory, this perk actually isn't that bad as is. However, the gameplay it encourages is the reason why it is a poorly designed perk. And I need to make that very clear with the whole what poor design means. Poorly designed, as I've said many times, has nothing to do with the strength of a perk or how viable it is. It has to do with the playstyle it necessarily encourages. I said it before with Knockout. Knockout is a very slug-heavy, encouraging perk to the point to where they die on the floor. Things like adrenaline are well designed because there's a lot of conditions to make it happen. Not a lot, but there's conditions to make it happen, and it's an effect to reward you for getting to the end game. So I don't find it poorly designed. If anything, I think it's very well designed. Same with something like Hex Devour Hope. I think in general it's one of the best designed perks in the game because it stacks up to give you a good effect. The survivors have some counterplay against it in multiple ways, etc., etc. I've gone over this before. But things like Play with Your Food encourage a playstyle that is just not good, in my opinion. So how does this work, for those who don't know, because it's not a very common perk? Every time you chase your session and let them escape, you get 1 token of Play with Your Food up to a max of 3. For each token, you get a 5% permanent haste boost up to a max of 15%. When you perform a special attack or a basic attack that can damage a survivor, you lose 1 token. It has a cooldown of 10 seconds, so you can't just keep chasing the obsession over and over. So in theory, this is just a haste buff you get for losing chase with the obsession. So very similar to Save the Best for Last, which this perk is sometimes comboed with. This is a perk that basically encourages you to see one player on the enemy team and completely ignore them to get a benefit. And I think that is very poor design. Now, unlike something like Knockout, I don't think this perk is unsalvageable, though. That's the thing. I do think this perk has ways to fix it. I think the biggest thing is every time you get a stack, the obsession changes, and I actually kind of like that idea. So, the way this perk usually works and how you'll typically see people running it, even when they're not combining it with Save the Best for Last, is whenever they see the obsession, they'll chase them for a little bit and then immediately run away and get their stack. This will give them the permanent haste boost, and it also means that the obsession is trying to body block for whatever reason. They are actually, for the most part, there are select situations, benefiting you. Now, this perk also doesn't work on every killer. There are some killers who use their M2s constantly for whatever reason. Artists use them to scout. Legion, it's their primary form of injuring. Same with someone like Plague. There's a lot of M2 killers that do this. Now, there are some killers, like Myers, who can, quote, abuse the shit out of this perk. And how do they do that? Well, because Myers with infinite tier 3 or the ability to instant kill you doesn't lose the stack because the game doesn't count that as an injured hit. It just counts it as killing you, so it doesn't make them lose the stack. So Myers, ironically, since he does come with this perk, synergizes with it very well. But killers like Blight, who are using their ability to get around the map, same with Nurse, they lose these stacks constantly. Chucky's actually a very special case because he can use this in and out of hidey-ho mode, but he will lose the stack on Slice and Dice. So you can, in theory, use it on him to kind of get rid of his 110 movement speed buff, or debuff, I should say. But I don't think it's worth using on him most of the time. Killers who use this very well are any killers that have some form of stacking movement speed of some kind. Clown is amazing at using this because, for the most part, he can guarantee he's not going to miss that M1 for whatever reason. But the only way I can think of changing this perk is very similar to my change idea for Save the Best for Last, and that is having some way in it to inherently switch the obsession. I think after getting a stack of this, I think the obsessions switch. The reason why I say that is because it means you'd be chasing the obsession, you lose them for a second or whatever, depending on how the chase decides to go with the game mechanics. and then you continue to chase them with the buff. I don't think that's much healthier because it means you're kind of getting rewarded for going after the obsession. But then once you do that and get that single stack, then the obsession switches, and there's still the encouragement of maybe getting the 3 stacks. So I could possibly see that being better. But the base effect on this perk is just, it's not the issue. The issue is the condition on getting it. The fact that you're completely ignoring an entire person of the enemy team to get a buff that may or may not benefit you, it's just badly designed. It encourages you to just ignore an enemy, and I'm going to keep saying that over and over again because it's just, that's always not good. Think of it from the survivor's perspective. In terms of fun, not necessarily skill or anything, but that means there's one person on their team that just doesn't really get to play the game that much. They're just going in and just helping the killer. And if it's in solo queue, well, maybe you don't even know what's going on, so you're just kind of feeding the stacks by trying to body block and whatever. That's the other thing, is that this is one of the few perks in the game that kind of discourages body blocking from a specific player. There aren't that many in this game that do that, but this is one of them, and I really do think that's not healthy or good for the game in most cases. Otherwise, though, I think thematically and what this perk is trying to go for makes sense, so I see where they're coming from with it. But I wouldn't want to buff the numbers in any way. Honestly, my only change would be to make it so once you get a stack, the obsession switches. Or maybe once you get all 3 stacks, that way you're not completely avoiding the obsession, but you still have the option to a degree. But, you know, that 5% haste is still a lot on some killers, and enough to make it worth just going for the 1 stack and ignoring the obsession all game. Anyways, tell me what you guys think of Play With Your Food. I'm going to be going over a lot of other perks that you guys mentioned, particularly the hex perks. We're working on a whole video on the hex perks. But I love y'all. Normally the outros are pretty short, but I do want to mention that I am eligible for YouTube Partner. I still don't know if I'm actually going to take it or not, but it's there. Any case, links and stuff are below, as always. Twitch and likes and subs and all that. I love y'all. Have a good one. And yeah, bye.